Monsieur Duceppe.
Mr. Duceppe, you have 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, everyone, to the committee. I'll be speaking in French because my political party speaks French. Just to be sure, Ms. Carbonell, the money that was planned by Canada recently will go through the World Food Program and UNICEF. Did I understand correctly that you're saying that those organizations that are used to providing humanitarian assistance all over the globe would be unable to deliver that aid directly to people in Cuba?
Yes, we are suggesting, well, I cannot speak on how they operate on the ground. What I can speak to is for those organizations that you mentioned to coordinate with entities that are not part of the regime. The regime is creating the humanitarian crisis that we have right now. And like I said, aid provided to Cubans, if they are in charge of distributing, is going to go to their military hospitals, is going to go to their mansions, and it's going to go to the elite in Cuba. It's going to go to the hotels. It's going to go to, there are about 35 enterprises under GAESA. Therefore, what we are suggesting is that the aid, which hopefully won't be in cash, hopefully it's not going to be Canadian funds, because otherwise they will end up in the regime stores to get it, because other stores in national currency, you see, Cubans they paid in the national currency. But to get the essentials, they have to end up in those stores that are only dollar. You can only, the currency at those stores is only dollars. So regardless, the funding is going to end up in the books of GAESA.
We'll see. It often comes with accountability. Those organizations are competent. We'll see if you're correct. I'd like to ask a question. In your view, is it possible to not have regime political ideals, but also not support international policies that would oppress a population? Is it possible to do those things at the same time? Not to have the regime's political ideals, but also not to support policies that directly affect the population?
Policies in Cuba, when it comes from the regime, when it comes from the government, policies in Cuba affect the population. There is not one policy in Cuba that does not affect the population. So,
Je vous parlais de politique internationale.
I was talking about international policies, the U.S.
Oh,
French
je suis
and
désolé.
English is the...
Je vais parler plus doucement.
I'll speak more softly. In terms of human rights, do not have the impression that American policy has had much more of an impact on the population rather than on the regime. That's how things have been for 67 years, and the regime is still in place. What we see currently is a humanitarian crisis, one of the worst that Cuba has ever had, and it's the people who are suffering. I have no judgment. I'm asking you the question. American policies currently, if I look at what's in place, the regime isn't falling, but the people are suffering. Wouldn't there be cause for concern there?
Thank you for the question. I understand what you mean. It is true that we have that reflex to, let's say, be concerned about the external policy from the U.S. administration. But the real cause of the suffering in Cuba is not external. Like I just said, the administration in Cuba is capable of running the repression and is capable of running resorts. Should they wish, they will be also able to run the healthcare, education system. However, they do not care. The Cuban regime does not care about the suffering of the people. You know, we are talking about a regime that yesterday should have said, we are not able to run this island. We have a centralized economy that is not working, and we're going to have democracy and we're going to have economic reforms. But they are in their corner blaming everybody else in their mother instead of having accountability and saying that it is their failed policies that have given us 67 years of dictatorship. For example, the regime is able to procure personal protective equipment from a NATO country. A NATO country like Spain This is mind-boggling. A NATO country like Spain has procured full operational gear to the Cuban forces when they know that those forces are deployed against the unarmed civilian population when we take to the street to demand freedom, when they know that those forces are deployed to Venezuela to be the first inner circle of Maduro narco-terrorist regime, and then they tell the world in UN Assembly, they come here to Canada, to this house, to spout lies, and they tell the world that no Cuban troops are in Ukraine, that no Cuban troops are in Venezuela, and then they return to Cuba in shoe boxes, and the world sees that they're lying.
Monsieur Duceppe,